Abandoned among stars. The void of space was absolute, a perfect emptiness that swallowed light, sound, and hope with equal indifference. Commander Ilara Kane had stopped counting the days since the TSS Horizon, her research vessel, had been attacked and disabled. The rest of her crew was gone, some dead in the initial assault, others evacuated in the only functioning escape pod. As senior officer, she had stayed behind to ensure their escape. Day 42, she rasped into her personal log, voice cracking from disuse. Life support functioning at 38%. 4 weeks of rations remaining if I maintain quarter portions. The Horizon drifted through an uncharted sector, far from established trade routes or patrol lines. Her distress beacon had been broadcasting since the attack, but in this remote region, it was like screaming into a hurricane. No one was coming. No one even knew to look. Ilara moved through the vessel's dim corridors, conserving power with each step. The ship's AI had been damaged in the attack, leaving only basic functions operational. The environmental systems created a constant background hum that had become both maddening and comforting, proof she wasn't completely alone in the void. The attackers had been unlike any known species in the Terran database. Their ship had appeared without warning, materializing beside the horizon, as if it had always been there. It was less a vessel and more a moving tear in space itself, edges rippling with pulsing blue energy. They had boarded within minutes, bypassing all security protocols. Ilara reached the research lab, her domain before the attack. Now her last hope. The experimental quantum resonance drive that her team had been developing lay partially disassembled on the workbench. The aliens had gone straight for it, as if they knew exactly what they were looking for, but she had triggered the emergency lockdown before they could take it. They knew, she muttered, fingers tracing the intricate circuitry. They knew what we were building. How? The quantum resonance drive was supposed to revolutionize space travel, allowing ships to slip between dimensional barriers rather than pushing through normal space. If successful, it would have cut interstellar travel time from years to days. Now it might be her only chance for survival. A strange static buzzed through the ship's comm system, making her freeze. This had been happening with increasing frequency, brief bursts of noise that almost sounded like words. At first, she had attributed it to damaged systems, but now she wasn't so sure. "Hello," she called out. "Is someone trying to contact this vessel?" The static intensified, building to a crescendo before cutting out abruptly. In its place came a whisper, not through the comms, but somehow inside her mind. "We see you, isolated one. Your fear sustains us." Ilara's blood ran cold. She wasn't imagining it. Something was out there, watching her, watching and waiting. She returned to her makeshift workshop with renewed determination. If she could repair the quantum resonance drive and integrate it with the ship's backup communications array, she might be able to boost her distress signal across dimensional barriers. It was a desperate plan, but desperation was all she had left. Days blended together as she worked. Sleep came in fitful bursts, often interrupted by nightmares or the unsettling feeling of being watched. The voices returned intermittently, always just at the edge of comprehension. Sometimes she caught glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision. Shadows where no shadows should be, ripples in the air like heat distortions. "I'm not losing my mind," she told herself firmly as she connected the final circuit in her jury-rigged transmitter. "Something is out there, and I'm going to make damn sure humanity knows about it." The modified beacon hummed to life, drawing power from the ship's emergency reserves. It wouldn't last long. Maybe 12 hours before it drained everything. But it was her only shot. The signal would propagate through dimensional space rather than normal subspace channels, theoretically reaching further and faster than any conventional transmission. As the beacon activated, the ship's lights dimmed further. Emergency backups kicked in, bathing the corridors in eerie red light. Ilara made her way to the bridge, intending to monitor the signal strength. The view screen flickered to life as she entered, though she hadn't activated it. Outside, against the backdrop of distant stars, Space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a dark spot that grew larger with each passing second. It was happening again, the same phenomenon that had preceded the initial attack. The voice in her mind returned, stronger now. Your call reaches beyond your kind. We hear. We come. No, Ilara whispered, backing away from the screen. That's not possible. The signal is on human frequencies. All signals echo across the void. All fears call to us. The dark spot expanded until it dominated the view screen. Unlike before, this wasn't a ship emerging. It was as if space itself was reaching for her, tendrils of darkness extending toward the horizon. Alarms blared as the hull integrity sensors detected something making contact with the outer plating. Temperature readings plummeted in the forward sections of the ship. Whatever was out there was coming aboard. Ilara ran to the weapons locker, pulling out a pulse rifle. Standard weapons had proven ineffective against the attackers last time, but it was better than nothing. She established a defensive position in the main corridor leading to the bridge, prepared to sell her life dearly. The darkness seeped through the bulkhead like liquid shadow, pooling on the floor before rising into a vaguely humanoid shape. It had no features, no limbs, just a suggestion of form that shifted constantly. Your kind fights. Your kind fears. Both nourish us. She fired the pulse rifle, the energy blast passing harmlessly through the entity. It continued its advance, unhurried and inevitable. Ilara retreated step by step, knowing there was nowhere to run but unable to simply surrender. Then, without warning, the entire ship shuddered. Emergency lights flashed as proximity alerts screamed. Something massive had just dropped out of FTL travel dangerously close to the horizon. The shadow creature paused, its formless head tilting as if listening. For the first time, Ilara sensed confusion in its presence. The ship's damaged comms crackled to life with a human voice, strong and clear. TS Horizon, this is Captain Harlow of the TSS Invictus. We've detected your dimensional signal and unexpected company. Hold tight, Commander Kane. The cavalry has arrived. The shadow entity began to retreat, its shape dissolving back into formless darkness. Through the viewport, Ilara caught sight of what had caused such a reaction. The massive silhouette of a Terran warship, its running lights cutting through the darkness like a sword through shadow. Not just any warship, but the legendary Invictus, fought lost with all hands 3 years ago during the Centauri conflict. The shadow fully retreated as a brilliant beam of energy lanced from the Invictus, carving through the void directly at the dark anomaly outside the horizon. There was no explosion, no debris, just a silent ripple of blue energy as the darkness folded in on itself and vanished. A transport beacon activated, and Ilara felt the familiar tingle of molecular transport. As her atoms disassembled for transit to the Invictus, one thought burned in her mind. Humanity had found a way to fight back against the darkness between stars. She wasn't alone anymore. Vengeance of the Void. Ilara materialized on the transport pad of the TSS Invictus, legs buckling immediately. Strong hands caught her before she hit the deck. A tall, broad-shouldered woman in a captain's uniform with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Easy, Commander," said Captain Harlow, her voice matching the one from the transmission. "You're safe now." The horizon, Ilara managed, her voice weak from disuse and shock. "My research, already sending a team to secure your vessel and its contents," Harlow replied, helping her to a seat. "Your quantum resonance work is too valuable to leave adrift." Medical personnel swarmed around Ilara, scanning and treating her for malnutrition and exposure. Through the fog of their attention, one question burned in her mind. The Invictus was declared lost with all hands at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. "How are you here?" The medical team exchanged glances before Captain Harlow dismissed them with a gesture. Once they were alone in the medical bay, Harlow's professional demeanor softened slightly. "We were lost, but not destroyed," she explained. "During the battle, we encountered the same entities that attacked your ship. They pulled us into what we now call void space, a dimensional pocket between normal spacetime. We've been fighting our way back ever since. Harlow activated a holographic display showing the Invictus's journey. 3 years of hunting shadows through impossible space, learning their weaknesses, adapting weapons to harm creatures that existed partially outside normal physics. They feed on isolation and despair, Harlow continued. They've been picking off lone ships for decades, but no one connected the disappearances because the evidence vanished with the victims. We only survived because we were a warship with a full complement. The sheer number of minds resisting them together created a defense they hadn't encountered before. Ilara processed this information slowly. And my quantum resonance drive. How does it fit in? Your signal is what led us to you. The dimensional properties of your technology disrupts their ability to remain hidden. It's the key we've been looking for, a way to detect them before they strike and potentially close the dimensional rifts they use to travel. A tactical officer entered the medical bay, saluting sharply. Captain, we've secured the horizon and retrieved the research materials. However, we're detecting multiple void signatures converging on our position. Estimate 18 minutes until contact. Harlow's expression hardened. They don't give up easily. Commander Kane, I know you've been through hell, but we need your expertise. Your research could save both our ships. Despite her exhaustion, Ilara nodded firmly. Take me to my equipment. The next hour was a blur of activity. Working alongside the Invictus's engineering team, Ilara adapted her quantum resonance technology to the warship's weapons systems. The theory was sound. If the drive could create dimensional tunnels for travel, it could theoretically collapse the same tunnels that the void entities use to manifest. They're coming, announced the tactical officer as dark spots began appearing on the sensor readings. Multiple signatures, larger than anything we've encountered before. Through the viewports, Ilara watched as space itself seemed to tear open in a dozen places around the 2 human ships. The shadows poured through like liquid darkness, coalescing into shapeless masses that pulsed with negative light. You cannot escape us. Your kind are alone among stars. We have fed on fear since before your world cooled. The voice resonated through every mind on the ship, causing several crew members to cry out in pain. Ilara felt the pressure building in her skull, but pushed back against it. They're attempting psychological warfare, she told Harlow. The fear they create literally strengthens them. Harlow nodded grimly. Crew of the Invictus, she broadcast shipwide. Remember your training. Focus on anger, not fear. Remember what they've taken from us. Remember Earth. The change was immediate and palpable. The crushing mental pressure receded as the crew's collective emotion shifted from fear to determined rage. The void entities seemed to recoil slightly, their formless shapes wavering. Quantum resonance weapons online, reported the weapons officer. Targeting solutions acquired. Fire, ordered Harlow calmly. Beams of brilliant blue-white energy lanced out from the Invictus, striking the nearest void entities. Unlike conventional weapons, these did not pass harmlessly through. Where the beams connected, the shadows screamed. Not in sound, but in psychic waves that made everyone on board wince. The entities began a counterattack, tendrils of darkness extending toward both ships. Where they touched the hull, metal frosted over instantly, molecular bonds weakening. Hull breach on Deck 7, shouted an officer. They're trying to get inside. Rotate shield frequencies using the quantum harmonics, Ilara instructed. Don't let them establish a consistent point of attack. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was actually only minutes. The void entities showed unexpected adaptability, shifting their attack patterns to counter the humans' defenses. For every entity they destroyed, 2 more seemed to emerge from the rifts. Ilara worked frantically at her console, analyzing the energy patterns of the dimensional tiers. There was a pattern there, a vulnerability she could exploit if only she had enough power. Captain, she called out, the quantum resonance drive on the horizon. If we overloaded inside the largest rift, It could create a chain reaction that collapses all the connected pathways. That would destroy your research, Harlow replied. Years of work gone. Better gone than in their possession, Ilara said firmly. I can rebuild the drive. We can't rebuild dead ships and crews. Harlow didn't hesitate. Do it. Working together, they remoted into the Horizon's systems, routing all remaining power to the experimental drive. As energy levels climbed past safety parameters, the Void entities seemed to sense what was happening. They abandoned their attack on the Invictus, converging on the smaller research vessel with newfound urgency. They know, Ilara whispered. They're trying to stop it. Too late, Harlow replied, hitting the final command sequence. The quantum resonance drive detonated in a silent flash of energy that transcended normal light. The dimensional rifts convulsed, edges fluctuating wildly before collapsing inward. The Void entities caught in the effect didn't explode or disintegrate. They simply ceased to exist, erased from reality itself. When the blinding light faded, normal space had been restored. No rifts, no shadows, nothing but stars and the damaged but intact Invictus. The Horizon was gone, leaving behind only scattered debris and the echo of its sacrifice. In the silence that followed, Ilara felt grief for her lost work, but also a fierce pride. Humanity had faced an enemy that fed on fear itself and had responded with courage and defiance instead. The Void entities had never encountered a species that grew stronger in adversity rather than weaker. We need to warn Earth, she said quietly. This isn't over. There will be more of them. Yes, agreed Harlow, looking out at the stars. But next time, we'll be ready, and we won't be fighting alone. She gestured to a communications officer. Send word to Fleet Command. Tell them the Invictus is coming home, with new allies and new weapons against the darkness between stars. As the message was transmitted, Ilara looked around at the battle-worn crew of the Invictus, humans who had been trapped in nightmare space for 3 years and emerged not broken, but hardened. They had refused to surrender to the Void. They had found a way to fight back against beings that preyed on isolation and fear. That was humanity's greatest strength, she realized. Not technology or weapons, but the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The ability to find hope in the darkest places and forge connections that transcended the cold emptiness of space. The stars outside seemed brighter somehow as the Invictus set course for Earth, carrying its message of warning and triumph. The void between stars was vast and filled with terrors, but humanity would face them together, and they would prevail.